If you're holding XRP right now, you might be way earlier than you think. Most people look at the price, maybe a couple of charts, and that's it. But there's one tool I like to use that shows something much deeper, where you actually rank among all XRP holders in the world. Today, I'm going to walk you through it, explain what it really means, and why being just a small holder might still put you in a very strong position long term. Welcome back to Daily XRP Brief. Before we start, quick reminder, this video is for educational purposes only. I am not a licensed financial advisor. Nothing in this video is financial advice. Always do your own research before buying or selling anything. All right, let's get into it. There's a website called rich-list.info. There's a hyphen between rich and list. What this site does is simple but powerful. It looks at all the XRP wallets on the XRP Ledger and shows you how the supply is distributed. You can see how many wallets exist. You can see how much XRP sits inside different wallet ranges. And you can type in your own balance to see what percentile you're in among all XRP holders. You don't have to connect anything. You don't have to log in. You can just type the amount of XRP you hold, press submit, and it will show you approximately where you rank. Even if you don't want to paste your wallet address, you can still use it just by entering the number of tokens you hold. Now, one of the most misunderstood numbers on this site is the total wallet count. When you first look, you see millions of XRP wallets. It's easy to think, wow, there are millions of people holding XRP. But that's not true. Most active XRP holders have multiple wallets. You might have one wallet on an exchange like Coinbase, Kraken, or Uphold. You might have one self-custody wallet, often a cold wallet. You might have a hot wallet for daily use or for DeFi and delegation. You might even have an extra wallet for rewards or for testing things. So a single person can easily have 3, 4, or 5 XRP addresses. On top of that, there are big institutional wallets and exchange wallets that represent thousands or even millions of users behind one address. So when you see several million wallets, you should not assume that means several million people. In reality, it's probably much closer to a fraction of that number in terms of actual individual holders. And remember, this is on a planet with close to 8 or even 9 billion people. So in terms of global adoption, XRP holders are still a tiny fraction of the population. If you're already in, you are still very early. So why does this matter for you personally? Because this tool helps you understand two things. First, how rare your position actually is. When you type in your balance and see that a few thousand tokens already put you in the top slice of all wallets, it gives you perspective. Second, how XRP is concentrated. A huge part of the total supply is held by a relatively small number of wallets. Top wallets, centralized exchanges, and of course the escrow controlled by Ripple. XRP has a fixed maximum supply of 100 billion tokens, and only a portion of that is circulating at any given time. A big chunk is locked up in escrow and released gradually over time. That gives Ripple some control over how quickly new supply hits the market. Some people don't like that, but it's also part of the design for institutional adoption, because that's the key point. XRP isn't really designed to be your everyday grocery store coin. It's built to move value between institutions, banks, payment providers, and large financial entities doing cross-border transfers. Most of the utility happens in the background. You and I might never spend XRP at a shop, but we could be using services that quietly rely on XRP under the hood. And when you look at the rich list, you can see that reality very clearly. A relatively small number of huge wallets at the top, and then millions of smaller holders like us. Now, let's connect this to something very important: ETFs and institutional demand. As more XRP-related products and ETFs launch and attract institutional money, those funds have to go into the market and buy XRP. Under the hood, they need the real asset to back their products. Where do they get it from? They get it from exchanges. They get it from liquidity providers. Indirectly, they get it from holders who decide to sell. But remember, supply is capped. Only part of that supply is circulating. A large share is already concentrated in big wallets and in escrow. If institutional demand continues to grow faster than new supply is released, you get what's called a supply crunch. And a supply crunch in a fixed supply asset usually does one thing over time. It puts upward pressure on price. Nobody can say exactly when that happens or how far it goes. There are no guarantees. But the Rich List lets you visualize how tight the liquid supply can become. Now let's talk about you for a moment. Imagine you've been dollar cost averaging into XRP for a year or so, and you've built a position of around 2,000 to 2,500 XRP. On most XRP Rich List style tools, that already puts you somewhere around the top 10 to 15% of all wallets. Think about how crazy that is. We're not talking about millions of dollars. We're talking about a few $1,000s, putting you into the top slice of global XRP holders. That doesn't mean you're guaranteed to be rich, but it does mean your position is far from insignificant. And as more new wallets are created, as more institutional products accumulate XRP, and as more retail money trickles in, the thresholds for top 10%, top 5%, and top 1% will shift over time. If you're a long-term holder who isn't constantly selling, you will naturally climb those rankings as the ecosystem grows. So what do you actually do with this information? Again, this is not financial advice, but here is one way to think about it. First, decide how much exposure to XRP you're truly comfortable with in the context of your total net worth. Then, if you like the asset long-term, you can use dollar cost averaging, small, regular buys over time instead of trying to perfectly time the market. Once you reach a personal milestone, like a certain XRP balance or a certain percentile on the Rich List, focus more on holding and managing risk than on constantly jumping in and out. If you ever take profits, try to have a clear reason. Paying off high-interest debt, making an important life purchase, or funding a specific goal. Selling just because it went up without a plan often turns people into exit liquidity for institutions who are thinking in years, not weeks. And remember, there are and will be more delegation and yield options built around XRP over time. The long-term game isn't only about price going up, it's also about positioning yourself to potentially earn yield on assets you already hold without overextending your risk. So how can you actually use rich-list.info step by step? Go to the site. Type in either your wallet address or simply the amount of XRP you hold. Look at your rank, look at your percentile, and look at how the big wallets are distributed above you. Then ask yourself a few questions. Am I comfortable with this position long term? Do I want to slowly climb into a higher bracket over time? What is my exit or profit-taking plan if I ever need one? Use it as a reality check, not an obsession. I like to think of it as a reminder that being early isn't about having millions of tokens. It's about being involved before the rest of the world truly understands what's happening. A relatively small deposit today can still put you into the top slice of holders in an asset that is designed to operate at a global institutional scale. If you found this breakdown helpful, make sure you like the video, leave a comment, and share it with someone who's also on their XRP journey. This is Daily XRP Brief. I cover XRP, the ecosystem, and the bigger picture behind the charts. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next brief.